Hey guys, Patricia here from Old School Lane and Manic Expression. I just wanted to give off a little bit of a fair warning right before you listen to this podcast. Kevin and I, we're going to be talking about Beware the Batman, and we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of other Batman things, which is going to be really good if you're a big Batman fan. There's just only one little thing that I wanted to tell you. Kevin and I recorded this around early January, so the news about Young Justice being canceled as well as Green Lantern the Animated Series wasn't known at the time. Also, it has been confirmed that Beware the Batman will be coming out around summer 2013 due to the fact that Young Justice and Green Lantern was canceled, which is why the Batman will be coming out. Now, I don't know why they can't be able to run all these shows at once, but I digress. But nonetheless, I hope that you enjoy this episode, and stay tuned because we have a really special episode coming up with a very special guest from across the pond. Anywho, sit back, relax, get your Batman cape and your batarangs and call out Robin or whatever that Batman fans do, and enjoy the podcast. Catch you later. Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by the members of oldschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with manic-expression.com. Coming soon, the 200-member special and the Manic Expression documentary.
Who would hurt the innocent? I give you this one warning. Beware my wrath.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Casual Chat. I'm Kevin Guillermo.
And I'm Patricia Miranda.
I hope everybody is doing very well. Today's podcast, we're going to be talking about, it's going to be a Batman theme. We're going to do our second impressions on Beware the Batman, the upcoming 2013 CGI series on Cartoon Network. Both me and Patty are going to give our second impressions on the show, what we think. And although we were late to the party, we're going to be talking about Batman the Animated Series. Not too long ago, the show celebrated its 20th anniversary, which I was very unaware of because I love Batman the Animated Series. So, me and Patty are going to talk about Batman the Animated Series. Who was our favorite characters on the show? What was our favorite episodes? So it's going to basically be a Batman theme.
Yeah, and if we're nice enough, maybe we'll talk about the movies and the other animated shows.
Correct. So anyway, let's get the ball rolling. Not too long ago, I did a first impressions on Beware the Batman. And there was very little information, and there still is on the show. Very sporadically, they're adding information, which I'm surprised because we're in 2013, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, way before, way before we saw concept art and whatever. Nickelodeon was already talking about the show and what direction it was taking and who was confirmed. So, I'm very curious as to know why it's taking Cartoon Network or Warner Brothers so long to announce what's going on, unless they're adding more characters or unless they're going to add more voice actors. Just recently, Cree Summer, who you all may know of as Penny on Inspector Gadget and as Susie Carmichael and Rugrats and All Grown Up, was a very talented voice actress and a very, very talented singer. And she's also a very beautiful woman, will be voicing a character on Batman. Ironically, she was also in Batman Beyond, but I don't think her character is going to be the same, because Batman Beyond takes place in the future, and this is kind of like a modern Batman, not very futuristic from what I've seen. From what I've seen, it's going to be somewhat loosely mirrored off of the Christopher Nolan Batman films. The design of Batman is sort of loosely based, his batsuit. But there's still not that much information about the show. It's really being kept keeping under wraps, and not a lot of stuff is going on. What we can say is that it won't be having the classic Batman villains like the Joker, Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, Catwoman, the Penguin, Two-Face, Scarecrow, Mad Hatter, Killer Croc, the Riddler, Clock King, all those famous Batman villains that we know, Man-Bat, will not be in the show. Apparently, they're going to be taking other Batman villains, and they're going to just be revamping them and just putting them on the show. In particular, Anarchy, who was introduced in the late '80s as sort of as Batman's arch nemesis, is going to be he's not going to be the Joker, but how the Joker was sort of like the main villain in the series of like Batman the animated series and whatnot. He's going to be the main villain in the series. Accompanied by him will be Professor Pig and Mr. Toad, who was introduced in Grant Morrison's Batman and Robin Reborn comics, which we'll get to in a little bit. Magpie, who was actually a Superman villain, is going to be on the show, and she's getting a total revamp. And Humpty Dumpty will also be on the show. So, Patty, let's hear what you have to say about it. What do you think from what you've seen and what you speculate? Like, what do you think?
Well, from what we've discussed about over the last few months, there really isn't that much information from the times have passed. We're a little bit concerned about the guy who's voicing Batman. We don't even know who this guy is, and the fact that he's Hawaiian. We've actually made fun of the fact that he's now a Hawaiian Batman.
Well, actually, I do remember him. He was in an episode of American Horror Story, the last episode, Afterbirth.
Okay.
Other than that, I really don't know what other stuff he has done.
Right.
It's not because he's Hawaiian that I'm a little worried about.
No.
What I heard in the trailer, because there's a short teaser trailer of him, he doesn't really sound menacing.
No, he doesn't.
Kevin Conway, who voiced Batman in Batman the Animated Series, sounded very menacing. Now, you take in consideration that there's different incarnations of Batman. Batman Brave and the Bold was sort of, I would call it like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1987 version of Batman, where it was a little bit lighthearted. There was some dark moments, I'm not going to lie. There was some episodes that were pretty dark. But most of the series, although I will say it wasn't as campy as Spider-Man Unlimited. No offense. I think that Batman, I think Brave and the Bold put Spider-Man Unlimited to shame.
I actually love Brave and the Bold. I really appreciated that it was supposed to be a lighter incarnation of Batman during a time in which it was getting dark. And I think it's really underrated because of that.
Well, I meant that it's a lot better than Spider-Man Unlimited.
Anything's better than Spider-Man Unlimited.
Yeah, you take two shows that are campy. At least Brave and the Bold is not campy on top of campy on top of campy. At least it's like a roller coaster ride where we'll get a breather. With Ultimate Spider-Man, it was just, I won't even get into it. We'll save that for another podcast when we talk about Spider-Man.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but what I have to say about Brave and the Bold is that, you had, what was his name, Patty, the voice actor, who was also on Drew Carey, and he also did the same voice he used for Batman / Bruce Wayne for The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. What was his name?
The guy who was the voice of Batman in Brave and the Bold?
Yeah, what was his name?
Jeez. Give me 1 second. Oh. There goes Kevin's parole officer. He's coming to pick him up.
Yeah, they're coming to take me away.
Yeah. While we wait for that to happen, the guy who voiced Batman in Brave and the Bold was Diedrich Bader.
Yeah, he used a voice for that particular incarnation because it was menacing and whatnot.
Yeah.
That was his Batman. But every incarnation is different, but at least Batman had a menacing voice.
Yeah, well, exactly. Kevin Conroy is not the same as Rena Romano. Rena Romano is not the same voice of Diedrich Bader. They all had their Batmans different.
Right. Adam West. Every Batman had their own version of being menacing. With this guy, I just can't... He doesn't have a very menacing voice. It just seems like his voice is going to be the same as his Bruce Wayne's voice, which I hope not, because then, the whole point of Batman was that he was able to switch his voice so that no one could recognize his voice.
It was during a time in which that was very typical for Bruce Wayne to kind of sound like Batman. But then when you had people like Michael Keaton and Kevin Conroy, they decided to make their voices different. They wanted to bring in different personality. Because you have Bruce Wayne, who is the big billionaire who is basically the richest guy in Gotham City and who has all these elaborate parties. And then you have the vigilante of Batman, who is dark and menacing and mysterious. So I guess he's kind of going back into the whole concept of Batman sounding like Bruce Wayne. It's sort of like with Clark Kent sounding like Superman. So for some people, it might be a little bit disappointing because we just became so accustomed to Bruce Wayne and Batman sounding completely different.
Right.
And then we have the villains. You were really excited in your first impressions about Professor Pig.
Oh, I very much was, because Professor Pig is such a demented, sadistic... I mean, if you have a character... I mean, when I first heard about him, I kind of laughed at the idea because I thought it was going to be like a campy character. I mean, when you have someone wearing a pig's mask, you really think it's either one of two things. You either think it's a ripoff of Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or you actually think it's another sad attempt of taking a villain that's meant to be serious, and then he's not serious at all. He's just, his gimmick is wearing a pig's mask. But it turns out that as I read the comics and I did more research, Professor Pig is a sadistic person. Not only does he wear a pig's mask, but he has an apron. He wears a white shirt, black pants, black slacks, black shoes, a red bow tie, and an apron covered in blood. What he does is he has, what Professor Pig is, he kidnaps people, and he turns them into Dollatrons, which are these life-size, which are people, men or women or boys or girls or whoever, a living thing, and he puts a mask over their face, a toxic mask, and he's basically like Leatherface. He sews it seeps into their skin. He puts it's connected to their face, and they're brainwashed, and they become genderless. So they're no longer men or women. They're just these giant-sized dolls, and they look like these demonic Raggedy Ann dolls, and it's just very creepy looking. And the mask that they wear, it becomes their face. And the things that he says, because he's always on drugs, is just so weird. Like, he says these weird things, and he's always saying, like, rip Batman and Robin's lungs, I want to eat them, or I want to devour them. Like, he says the most weirdest things, but the character is so intriguing in its own way. And I just can't fathom how they're going to take a character like that, which they are, and they admitted it, and tone it down for a kid's show. I mean, that's like making a cartoon series of Freddy Krueger. What are you going to do? I mean, Professor Pig kills people. That's his thing. Granted, the Joker kills people, but mainly in a lot of the comic books, it wasn't all him killing people. Before the Heath Ledger phenomenon started and Jack Nicholson, there was incidents where the Joker or Penguin would kill people or whatever, but it wasn't a massacre. They didn't it wasn't as violent. I mean, but, not needless to say, Professor Pig isn't the very first violent supervillain. But I just can't see how they could take a character like that and make it into a cartoon.
I can't either. I mean, if they tone it down, then it's going to be a big slap in the face for all the people who are looking forward to seeing this character. But if you don't tone it down, it's definitely going to get like a huge M rating, and kids will definitely not be able to see it. So they have to work really hard to create a fine balance. Do you think it could be possible?
It could be, but they would have to revamp their whole story. They're going to have to take the characters from Grant Morrison or whatever, and they're going to have to give them new backgrounds. It's like you're going to be basically giving, it's basically you're erasing their memory. You're keeping the character's appearance or some of it, but you're basically going to be just taking them and just like totally making them new. They won't, it's like you're going to be creating these characters. You're going to give them a backstory. You're going to give them life. But you're just going to keep it somewhat like a homage to the original character. So it could work, but how they go about it is the question. I mean, if they're going to make, it's going to be a huge, big difference if you have somebody who uses a mask to brainwash people than using a pie in their face, or he's going to be talking in a weird language in the comic books, and then he's just going to talk gibberish in the series, So it's a big difference depending on how you're going to revamp them,
Right. For those who want to know an interesting fact, Professor Pig was actually shown in a brief cameo in Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, too bad he wasn't a villain. I really would have loved to see him as a villain. But actually, that incarnation is very, very similar to the one in the comic book. The new Batman that he's in, the Beware the Batman, it's very different. He has a very 1920-ish appearance to him. I don't know why, and I don't know why they gave him that, because, you know. But in the Brave and the Bold, that small clip with Mr. Toad and a couple of other villains, his appearance is is the same as the comic books.
Right, and it's kind of interesting that the light, campy Batman has Professor Pig that looks like in the comic books, and then you have the dark, serious Batman, which has Professor Pig look completely different. And let's see, also another addition would be Alfred is going to be joining alongside with Batman, and he's going to be using guns. How do you feel about that?
Well, they said they're going to tone down the guns through the Aurora shooting, so he's really not going to be having guns. You know, Alfred, in his own way, is a kick-ass character, but, you know, I mean, from what they described him, he's going to be like Sean Connery in The Untouchables, and they said that, you know, he's going to be not just someone that's going to sit by the sidelines, he's going to give Bruce Wayne advice and all that. Well, it really depends, you know, I mean, he looks really young. He doesn't look like he has the gray hair or the bald hair or in his appearances. You know, he's going to have the British accent, he's going to wear the suit and all that stuff. So it's going to be very different from seeing an Alfred who was very feeble, or an Alfred who, you know, who's very prim and proper, to someone who would have a vest of like 8mm or 9mm and just start shooting the place. So it's a very big difference. My big concern is, though, Batgirl. Apparently, this incarnation of Batgirl is going to have her as a teenager. Oddly enough, she's a fan of both Batman and Katana, who is Batman's new sidekick, which we'll get to in a little bit. Apparently, she's actually a die-hard fan of Batman and Katana. So my question is, if she's such a fan, I'm hoping that's not going to get away in the fighting, where she's going to ask for Batman's autograph.
No, we already had Batmite to do that.
Yeah, I'm afraid they're going to pull a Batmite and just have her in her costume and just run up to Batman, and while he's fighting, like, say, Professor Pig or Magpie, she's going to whip out a pad and a pen and say, "Can you sign my autograph?" And she's one of the heroes.
Yeah. As much as I love Batmite, something like that in a dark, serious Batman is definitely not allowed.
Well, you see, he can get away with the Batmite because he's Batmite.
Right. He can get away with it, but Batgirl cannot. Batgirl is
a sidekick. Yeah, I mean, I can't see having a sidekick who's a diehard fan of someone who she's working with, and then, like, in the middle of the fighting, she's going to ask for the autograph, or she's going to, like, hound him for, like, a photo. I mean, I can understand she's a fan, but I'm just hoping that it's not going to cloud her characteristic, because Batgirl, in some instances, in some incarnations, could be a pretty kick-ass character, but she's going to be a teenager, probably the same age as April O'Neil in the new TMNT series, probably around 16 or 14, you know.
Yeah.
Around that age. So,
definitely.
See where that goes.
Yeah. And, of course, last but not least, is Katana. Katana, who's supposed to be the female Robin.
Well, yeah, you know, hopefully Robin will be back. I hate that, you know, Robin is kind of like the black sheep in the Batman because he's a sidekick. You know, I mean, because Robin is a good, you know, Robin has his hero qualities. So I'm kind of hoping they don't push him away too much. I mean, it wasn't fully confirmed that the Joker won't appear. They said that maybe if Season 2 picks up, or, you know, later on, they'll maybe add some villains, but because of Young Justice, majority of all the Batman villains have appeared on there. They said they want to kind of give it a break.
Yeah, and we already have Nightwing in there, so it would be nice if either Tim Drake or Damian Wayne would be the new Robin, similar to the comics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Damian Wayne is the Robin in Batman and Robin Reborn, so it would be nice if we can see that. And in some incarnations, Damian is Bruce Wayne's illegitimate son from Talia al Ghul. So, you know, there could be a little bit of interesting, you know, things with father and son relations. So, yeah, if Robin does come along, as much as I love Dick Tracy, I would love to see either Tim Drake or Damian Wayne come along. Damian Wayne would be a really good choice. Yeah, we've seen Dick Grayson more than a billion times. We've seen Jason Todd. We've seen Tim Drake. It would be nice if Damian can be a Robin.
I agree on that.
Yeah, because Damian if he's developed well, he could be a really interesting character when he needs to be. And in Batman and Robin Reborn, he was a pretty good Robin.
Yeah, he was. I just really hope that they bring more character. My concern is that, I really hope that they don't totally 86 all the classic Batman characters. Because, it's like, I understand, with Batman Brave and the Bold, it's like they got every single DC character they can get their hands on. I mean, even characters that were obscure.
Very obscure. This was during a time in which... Yes, very obscure. This was during a time in which nobody knew who the Blue Beetle was. Now he's like one of the most popular characters ever.
Yeah, I know.
And you have characters such as Calendar Man, and you also have, Captain Cold, and...
Giganta, Elastigirl. You had all these characters, and I feel as if though Warner Brothers was like saying, well, I think we tired everyone out with all the heroes and characters from Batman, because primarily it was a Batman show, even though Green Arrow and Blue Beetle were on it,
and not to mention Aquaman.
But the concern was that it was a Batman show. So that meant that if it was a Batman show, we had to get as many Batman villains and characters as we possibly can. On the same note, I mean, they even did a crossover with Scooby-Doo as a nod to the Scooby-Doo movies with Batman and Robin.
Oh, I seen that one. That was actually pretty hilarious, in which Batman was like the narrator, and then, they showed Batman and Robin off and Scooby-Doo. That's actually one of the most popular episodes in Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, but I feel like they just said, we're very tired. We were tired. We used everyone we could possibly think of. Now we're going to take a different direction and use other characters from other comic books to be in Beware the Batman. Which I really hope not, because then it won't be a Batman show. It'll be like a variety show. Where you're having all these characters and you're saying to yourself, well, where's all the Batman characters, I mean, I don't want to watch a variety show. I want to watch a Batman show. If I watch a Batman show, I want to see Catwoman. I want to see I want to see Two-Face. I want to see Calendar Man. I don't want to sit here and watch other villains from other comic books defeat the Batman. If I want to do that, I pick up a back issue.
There you go. That's there you go. So yeah, as of now, Beware the Batman will be coming out hopefully by sometime this year or next year. We don't know, but as of now, we're still really skeptical about it. There's a lot of questions to be answered, and.
Well, hold on. I'm going to give everybody a roster of all the villains that are confirmed to be in Batman. Beware the Batman. Okay, everybody.
Please.
So let's hear all the characters and also all the voice actresses, which is very little. The official roster of all the villains as follows will be Anarchy, Ra's al Ghul. Now, it hasn't been confirmed that Talila al Ghul, his daughter, will be on the show, but I got a good hunch that she will be, because you can't have Ra's al Ghul and Talila al Ghul not together. Talila al Ghul had appeared in all the Batman incarnations with her father. You may argue that they weren't together in The Dark Knight Rises, but she was part of that series. So, if she doesn't appear in the first season, granted, she'll probably appear in the second season. But I have it's a safe bet she will be on it. Tobias Whale. I'm trying to see who he is for a minute. Hold on, because I'm very confused as to who he is, really, because Tobias Whale. Oh, that's why I can't recognize him, because he was a villain in Black Lightning.
That's very odd.
He's a Black Lightning villain. Okay, so we know that another villain from a comic book, from a DC comic book, is going to be Beware the Batman. His nickname is the Great White Whale because he looks like he's a very morbidly obese man with a pointed head, not to be confused with Kingpin. Professor Pig, as I just mentioned, Magpie, who was a Superman villain. She appeared in The Man of Steel. Let's see, who else? Mr. Toad, who is going to be, it's also confirmed that both Professor Pig and him will work together. King Kraken, who you guys will probably recognize in Beware the Batman, he had made a couple appearances. Humpty Dumpty. Now, Humpty Dumpty, for those of you who don't know, I'll tell you a little backstory. Humpty Dumpty was a 90s villain, I believe. I'll double check just to make sure so I get my facts straight. But he's a really obscure character that didn't really appear much in the Batman series. Humpty Dumpty was a morbidly obese man. Obviously, he was a nod to the fairy tale Humpty Dumpty. But this version, aside from him being bald and overweight. Oh, I'm sorry. Correction. He appeared in the early 2000s. His first appearance was Arkham Asylum: Living Hell, issue number 2. With this Humpty Dumpty, though, he is very, very intelligent. He's not he's not stupid. I'll tell you why in a little bit. He speaks in rhymes. I guess that's a nod to his to the character. But let us to continue with a little bit. His villain, his shtick is that he likes to take apart things and he likes to put them back together. He'll take a toy, he'll rip up a dollar bill, and he'll put it together. He took a lot of library books on the human anatomy, on the human body, and the cops were hunting him down because he had a large fine to pay, and he went insane, and he killed his mother, brutally murdered her, and slaughtered her, and put her back to pieces. And he ended up in Arkham. So, so that's his shtick. He likes taking things apart and putting them together, so that's his little thing. Alex is another villain who I have no idea who this is. Like Glenn Murakami, who's one of the producers of the show, said that they really went into they dug really hard into the DC archive, and I could definitely tell you I never heard of these villains, and I've been a Batman aficionado for such a long time, and I really have no idea who half of these villains are. So this is their first time to shine. So that's going to be interesting. And there's really I don't know. There's no information about him. I guess, he really wasn't a big villain. All right, to get the ball rolling, as we said, Anarchy will be the main villain. Anthony Rivera will be both Batman and Bruce Wayne. Samil Montano, apologize if I said her name wrong, who is known as the voice of Mystique in X-Men Destiny, and RC. She is mainly known for RC in Transformers Prime. And for those of you who play Skylanders, she's Kaylee. I'm probably butchering these names as I'm just saying this. She's going to be Katana and Tatsi. I'm sure. Okay, I'm not even going to attempt that. J.B. Blank will play Alfred Pennyworth and also the Batcomputer. Udo Kier, who a lot of horror film fans like myself will definitely recognize because he was in a shitload of horror movies, from Blade with Wesley Snipes to Flesh for Frankenstein to Suspiria. He was also in Barbed Wire. He was in a lot of B movies, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and that very weird Pinocchio movie where he played a drag queen. Which was really weird. Yeah, that's another weird movie. I don't know. What was the name of it? Hold on. Yeah, it was a very weird movie. It was Pinocchio. Oh, The Adventures of Pinocchio. Oh, no, that was the sequel. The New Adventures of Pinocchio, which was so fucking weird.
Yeah, we don't want to confuse it with The Adventures of Pinocchio with Jonathan Taylor Thomas as Pinocchio.
Yeah, that was a lot better movie than this, and that's very odd for me to say because it received a lot of mixed reviews. That movie.
Yes.
Anyway, back to what I was saying. Lance Reddick will be Ra's al Ghul, and everybody best remembers Lance from, and I really like. I think he's a really good actor. Was in Oz. He was Oz Detective Johnny Basil. He was also in Fringe, Lost, and Law and Order. So that's really good. He's got a very good hefty resume there. I think he could pull it off. Kurtwood Smith That '70s show, and the villain in RoboCop, he was known as Clarence Boddicker, is going to be Lieutenant James Gordon. And last but not least, Cree Summer is Bethany Ravenclaw. Again, I have no idea who the hell she is, and it's not the character from Batman Beyond. So I don't know. They said that they're currently working. On building Gotham. From what they said, it's going to be a combination of live action and CGI. So I don't know how that's going to be.
We'll just see.
Yeah, it's from the creators of Green Lantern, the animated series. So we just gotta play it by ear. It doesn't even have a release date. It says spring 2013. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated. From what I've seen, look, I'll give it the benefit of a doubt. I like Batman. I love Professor Pig. We'll see where it goes. If and actually, so far on IMDb, which I'm very surprised, it actually has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 stars. So I don't know who was able to watch I don't know if it was. I don't know who was able to check it out before everybody else. But and also, if you're curious, as I was and Patty was, you can go on to Google. There are some hidden, which was not really meant for the eyes to see, but someone was able to pull it off because no pictures were allowed. From what I read, were able to take snapshots of early concept designs and designs of these characters of Beware the Batman. So if you do your homework or you're bored, type in Beware the Batman concept art, and you're going to get a lot of those. Hopefully they're not taken down. Now, as we said, we're going to talk about Batman, the animated series. This is going to be a Batman-themed podcast, as Patty and I both said. Patty, I'll give you the floor. Let's talk about Batman, the animated series. Let's take it down. Let's take a trip down memory lane, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about the show, our favorite characters, our go ahead.
Let's do it. So, around September 5th, 1992, a brave, bold show that has never been seen before into the eyes of many kids has came out on Fox. A dark show created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini that would be the influence of the majority of superhero shows during the 90s came out in a way that was so unbelievably refreshing and new. In a time of goofy cartoons and in a time of gross humor, it was a show that came out that was unlike any seen, and that would be the protege for what was to come. That's all I got. What do you think?
Very good, Patty. I like it a lot. I like how you presented it.
Well, thank you. And then there's also, the fact that Danny Elfman did the theme, who also did the soundtrack for both the original Batman and Batman Returns, and also it was basically way ahead of its time because it was, due to the Tim Burton movies bringing. Showing Batman Dark again, as well as the comic books by Frank Miller and Alan Moore, and combining them all together, it created this big, huge phenomenon of a show, which many people, including the nostalgia critics, says it's the #1 greatest nostalgic cartoon of all time.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yes, in fact, for Kevin, I think I do recall that you were like really huge with Batman when we were kids in PS 192. I think you had like a whole bunch of Batman action figures.
Oh yeah. I was when I was young, and Patty was right on the money with this. I was very obsessed with Batman the animated series. Ritually would go to Toys R Us with my parents, and they would buy me a lot of Batman animated series toys. McDonald's had the toys, comic books, I mean, you name it. I actually have a very funny story to tell.
Please.
And I was dreaming about telling this to Mark Hamill if I ever met him.
Oh man, if we ever do a Batman tribute someday, we'll definitely have to try to get Mark Hamill to have an interview, which will probably never happen, but still, in our dreams.
when I was little, it was very difficult for me to find a Batman action. Although I eventually got a Batman action figure, that was based on Batman the Animated Series, not the variants like the Sky one and the Underwater one, but just a regular Batman figure. They also had a 12-inch Batman figure that was incredibly hard to find, and my parents wanted to get me a Joker action figure from Batman the Animated Series and a Harley Quinn. Now, I later understood that Harley Quinn was hard to find because at the time collectors were buying her off the shelves. Batman and the Joker was merely for kids. So I was I don't know how old I was, and I remember that I was walking in the Batman aisle, and I see these two stock boys. And ironically, and I swear to God, I know it sounds like it was trivialized, but these two guys are putting stuff away, and one of them says to the other guy, "You know, I just found something out." And he goes, "What?" to the other guy. "I just found out that Mark Hamill is the voice of the Joker." Now, keep in mind, this is when Batman the Animated Series first came out.
Yeah, so this was when Kevin and I were roughly around. Well, I was 6. Kevin was around 5 because his birthday's in November.
Yeah, there was no YouTube. There was no IMDb. There was no way you can go on the internet. Like, this was and the guy's like, "No, Mark fucking Hamill, Luke Skywalker? Are you kidding me?" And it was his face was priceless. I can still remember it. His jaw dropped because he couldn't believe it, because that doesn't sound like Mark Hamill. I mean, when you say Mark Hamill before Batman, you will automatically thought of Star Wars. Just like Robert Englund with Freddy Krueger, that was like Cassandra Peterson as Elvira, or Paul Rubens as Pee Wee Herman. So the guy was like, "Yeah," and it was hilarious. It really was, because this guy was just so in shock. He's like, "Now I got to wait till next week to watch the new episode and watch the end credits to see if he's really telling the truth." And if he betted money, he definitely would have lost. So again, I also found out that Paul Williams also voiced the Penguin, who did from 3 Dogs Night, and the guy was like having a heart attack. So it was just funny how back then people were so surprised to hear that Mark Hamill was the voice of the Joker. And I love the show. It's my second favorite TV show because I like how it was set in the 40s and it had a contemporary feel to it, and it didn't beat around the bush. It told kids the truth about life, and that about what goes on in the big world, and that Batman was amazing in that. I just love it. I really do, for nostalgia reasons and everything. The animation was superb. Harley Quinn, I love Harley Quinn. I mean, Arlene Sorkin will always be Harley Quinn, regardless of who does the voice of Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I mean, Tara Strong, we do love you and all, but Arlene Sorkin will always be the original Harley Quinn.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about that.
I mean, we loved you as Batgirl, by the way.
Yeah.
This was before she became known as Tara Strong. This was during a time in which she was known as Tara Sharondoff.
Yeah. I believe this was also the same year where she was in... she actually did live action before she did voiceover. She was in Sabrina the Teenage Witch. She was in one episode where she played a British witch who accidentally, I think, turned her boyfriend into an animal or something, and she went to Sabrina. It's pretty hilarious. I wonder if she remembers that, or if she does want to remember that.
Because she does. She remembers that. She talked about it on Kevin Smith's podcast, Fat Man on Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does remember that. She has talked about it. Because when Kevin Smith interviewed her, he was talking about that as of now, she has been the most consistent Batgirl that we'll ever know about. There's been so many incarnations of Batgirl, but Tara Strong has played it she's played it the longest.
Mm-hmm.
And she's played a whole bunch of other, superheroes. She's played as Raven. She was, she played, she was Harley Quinn. She was a whole bunch of other things. Right before nowadays, she's known as Twilight Sparkle from My Little Pony.
And can't forget about Timmy Turner and Poof from Fairly Odd Parents.
As well as Bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls, and also Terrence from Foster's Home. She's played tons of them.
The female Frank Welker, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, the female Frank Welker. Although I don't think she does animal sounds, but still,
no. But her and Frank have a very long resume of voice acting. So
Yes, they do.
If they need a sexy voice, well, so does. Well, actually, Grey Delice and Jennifer Hale also have a very big resume of female voices. So it's the three of them. They're like Charlie's Angels.
Yeah. Anyway, it's also interesting with Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn wasn't even a Batman character. She was just created by Bruce Timm.
Yeah, I was very surprised how she was just created for the show, and then she became this icon. I mean, everyone who does cosplay is Harley Quinn. I mean, it's like after the show, it was like if that was what every person wanted to be was Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. There's toys, there's dolls, spin-off comics. I mean,
the character is so iconic and is so memorable. So funny and yet so tragic at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you see, Arlie Sorkin interact with Mark Hamill as the Joker and Harley Quinn, the stuff that they talk about and all the abuse that happens, it's just so unbelievably tragic and at the same time just so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And you have so many fantastic episodes. One of my favorites is Perchance to Dream, in which Bruce wakes up and all of a sudden his life is normal. And then there's somebody else who's pretending to be Batman.
Was the Mad Hatter the villain in that?
I think so. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I think it was the Mad Hatter.
What else did you like about the show, Patty?
Besides the animation, and I think it was... I liked it that how some episodes, they left you with cliffhangers. Not a lot of cartoons were doing that. It was just, you watch one show, and then after a while, that's the end of it. There were very few times in which, you have stuff like He-Man, in which they kind of leave you with cliffhangers, but... Batman the Animated Series was very consistent when it comes to the cliffhangers, and it left you wanting more.
Yeah.
And,
what do you think about that?
And then, not to mention the music. Danny Elfman is a genius when it comes to portraying the music for Batman. And not to mention, there was also all the other villains. The way they were so developed. Two-Face, the Joker, Poison Ivy, Penguin, Killer Croc. They were all developed. They were all different. Every single one of them had their quirks and their personalities and their strengths and their weaknesses that everybody can be able to see. They weren't just portrayed as like stereotypical villains. Each one of them had personality. They were so fleshed out that they were almost like people. And another thing that was also incredible was the progression that it came through. When you see Dick Grayson and then you see Tim Drake as the new Robin, this is when a lot of people started to debate on which one was the better Robin. In my opinion, Tim Drake was the better Robin because he was a lot more capable of defending himself, despite the fact that he was much younger. And then when Dick Grayson became Nightwing, he just became a whole new level of badass.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
And not to mention that the show is still on in the hub, and more people are tuning into it, and it's held up so unbelievably well. If you guys are really into stuff like Young Justice and like stuff like that, then you really got to check out Batman the Animated Series. This is where it started. Mm-hmm. As well as X-Men the Animated Series, Spider-Man the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, the Justice League's shows. There were so many awesome animated superhero TV shows. I'll even say one of my favorite underrated is Spawn.
Why do you say that?
Not a lot of people talk about it, that's why.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, as much as I really appreciated Tara Strong's attempt of doing our Harley Quinn in Batman Arkham City, I still feel that Arlene Sorkin just brings something into it that Tara just didn't do.
I respect both. I respect both actors. I respect Tara Strong and I respect Arlene Sorkin. When you're doing a character like Harley Quinn or even the Joker for that matter, there's a lot of there's a lot of expectations. Is the character going to sound the same? If there's going to be anything new, or we as fans going to be comfortable? Unfortunately, I never got to play Arkham City or Arkham Asylum, although I really want to, and I know that they're considered not just in the Batman medium, but also in video games, have become very successful and have become, very, very good video games.
Yes, they've actually said that both of those games are considered to be the best Batman games in ever.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, it definitely outbeats Batman Forever for Sega Genesis, because that game was totally, totally terrible.
As well as Super Nintendo. Yes. I remember when
I had the joyous pleasure of playing it for Sega Genesis, and I got to tell you, man, the controllers didn't, for whatever reason, didn't work. The graphics were pretty good, I guess, considering it for a Sega game, because it looked like real people, as opposed to animated. But it was just really, really bad, and I was like stuck on like the third or second level, and even the angry video game nerd was like, "This is like, in his own words, was like, this is an awful video game."
Yes.
When he was doing a Batman tribute to the video games. But back on track, I like Arlene Sorkin. I mean, I do like Tara Strong, and I'm not saying she's I didn't hear her voice as Harley Quinn, so I can't give my opinion. But I feel that Arlene Sorkin will always be Harley Quinn. She brought a lot, and it's funny because the story behind that was Paul Dini. I don't know if he was friends with Christopher Lloyd, not the actor from Back to the Future and Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Star Trek 2, but it was, I don't know what he did, or he saw, or whatever, but he saw an episode of Days of Our Lives, and Arlene Sorkin was a regular on there, and there was 2 episodes. One episode where she was in aerobics, and she spoke like Harley Quinn on the show, and that inspired it. And another one was a dream sequence or whatever, where she was in a clown costume, on rollerblades, trying to be a court jester to a fantasy king or queen. And Paul Dini immediately got the inspiration for Harley Quinn, so that's how it all came about. So if it wasn't for Days of Our Lives, there wouldn't have been Harley Quinn.
Right.
So it played a huge influence on Batman the Animated Series. So That's how it all began.
Yes. And also, speaking of which, when it comes to Batman the Animated Series, to conclude it, and we can go on and continue to talk about the other Batman animated shows, Batman the Animated Series is still one of the best animated shows of all time. I seriously give it a recommendation to check it out.
Yeah.
Alright, so, and as for the other sequel to Batman, which was the New Adventures of Batman or something like that, where they had, they had Tim Drake as Robin, and then they introduced Nightwing, and Batgirl was more present, and the animation was different.
The first series I considered a classic, and I loved very much. The later one, I just didn't really like that much. I don't know, I didn't like the animation.
The Joker looked a little weird to me.
Yeah, he didn't have any. He just had. He didn't have. He just had pupils, and that was it. He just had. It was his eyes were black and they were yellow, and he looked really, really thin. His nose was extremely pointy. I didn't like how the characters were designed. And I didn't like Drake. I didn't like Tim Drake. Dick Grayson. No, not Dick Grayson. I'm sorry,
Tim Drake.
Tim Drake. I didn't like him. I thought he was to be very annoying. I just didn't like him. Although Batgirl played more of an important role in that in the later series, which I liked, but I just didn't like the way the characters were designed. Poison Ivy, they gave her more of a sexier appearance, which I liked, but and like the fact that they actually made her skin color like greenish as opposed to in the show where she was just a regular normal skin color. But I just didn't like the character designs. I thought it was very weird. I thought it was like, that's when they started to give like the pointy chins to the characters and the French fry steak fingers to the characters. And Batman the Animated Series was more authentic. It was like Filmation, where you had Masters of the Universe and Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids and She-Ra. Those, you would see the fingernails and all the detail in Batman the Animated Series. But here it was just like very like. I just didn't like it. I didn't like Bane either. I didn't like that he had that BMS, BMS mask or whatever. I just really prefer the original ones. But there are some good episodes in the latest series, that I like. But like I said, the original, the first season of Batman the Animated Series was my favorite.
Yeah, definitely. We recommend checking out the Batman the Animated Series, the New Adventures of Batman, the New Adventures of Batman. just take it for what it is.
Yeah, it's not bad, but it's definitely not my favorite when it comes to animation. The stories were still good, but I didn't like the fact that all the characters they did a 180. You know, the Penguin, I didn't know they gave him they made him look more like his comic book counterpart, which was good. But you know, I still prefer the original Batman the Animated Series.
Right. And so we close that, and then the next one we go to is Batman Beyond.
Yes, go ahead, Patty. This is your favorite show. Go ahead.
All right, Batman Beyond takes place sometime in the future. Bruce Wayne is retired as Batman because he's gotten too old, and so we are introduced to Terry McGinnis, who's played by Will Friedle, whom you guys might know from... Huh?
So he's a very awesome guy. I really like him. I haven't seen him in a lot of stuff lately, but I really like his voice acting a lot, and I really like his acting too. I like him, and I really liked him. Oh, go ahead. I'll tell you my opinions on it.
Yeah. Anyway, if you remember from the Nickelodeon tribute, he actually got one of his starring roles in a Nickelodeon talk show back in 1988. And also, as time went on, he went to do stuff like Boy Meets World, and he did a couple of other episodes of shows from the 90s, right before he came more into voice acting.
Yeah, he was an actor first before he did voice acting.
Which is basically 98% of a lot of people who go into voice acting.
Yeah, they start off as actors before they start off doing voice acting, although majority of the voice actors were actors first, so you can't argue with that, but they really didn't have well-known parts.
Exactly.
Which weren't huge. Like, I think Frank Welker was doing cameo roles. Linda Gary starred in a lot of stuff with her husband before she did filmation stuff, which is what she primarily did. Alan Oppenheimer was an actor. So, and it's a cool, it's a lot of different, you get a lot of different people who either they start first or whatever, because, voice acting is just like acting, and as Michael Bell said, they're actors, so
yes.
Same thing pretty much.
Yes, and with Batman Beyond, it was a lot more. It was a lot more darker. It was a lot more cinematic. It was very different, but yet at the same time, it felt familiar. It was nice to see Batman portrayed something else besides being Bruce Wayne.
Oh, really?
Yes, because even though that Bruce Wayne will always be known as Batman, there have been more people than just Bruce Wayne being as Batman.
Right.
In some comic books, you had Dick Grayson as Batman. In some comic books, you had Damian Wayne as Batman. So this was kind of like the first time in which people were, people who didn't read the comics, they were associated with the fact that Batman didn't always have to be Bruce Wayne. And
right.
Seeing this young kid who kind of went through the same things as Bruce Wayne did with his father being killed and wanting to get revenge on the guy who did it. And then you have Bruce Wayne coming along who basically knew how to fight crime and was there to be a father figure to him, which was really nice.
What were your favorite episodes of Batman Beyond?
Huh?
What were your favorite episodes of Batman Beyond?
Well, the first season was a little bit choppy for me because when you get to the nitty-gritty of it, of introducing the main villain, he wasn't fleshed out as he should have been. And then when things came along, it got progressively better.
So who's your favorite villain on the show?
Ooh, geez. That's a really good question.
There were a lot of them.
Yeah, there were a ton of villains. And, most of the villains that were introduced, we've never seen before. And they were practically all original, which was really nice.
Yep.
And then just like you said before, Kevin, Cree Summer also provided a voice for Batman Beyond as Terry McGinnis' sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
And it lasted for a few years, and it was hugely popular. It was during, I think, was it on Kids WB where they showed it?
It was on Kids WB, yeah. It was part of their Saturday morning lineup, and I think later on they aired it in the afternoon to coincide with Batman. It was called Batman and Superman Adventures in the late 90s. What they would do is every Friday, or I think every day, I'm not quite sure, they would air one time Superman and one time Batman, and then it wasn't until I think it was because that was like the final season of Batman the Animated Series, and then they had Superman the Animated Series because I guess they wanted to do Batman Beyond, and then after Batman Beyond, the next new Batman show would be The Batman, which was actually trying to hype up for the Christopher Nolan movie, the Batman Begins, or around that time, the
Yes.
Dark Knight, and now you have and then you had Batman the Brave and the Bold, which they wanted to do a more lighthearted Batman, and now you have Beware the Batman, which is going to follow or mirror off the footsteps of the Christopher Nolan movies.
Yes, and for the one thing that we forgot to mention right before we started this was there was a Batman and Robin cartoon from like the 70s.
Yes, by Filmation, right?
Yes. And a lot of people don't seem to regard it because they say it's even more campy than the Adam West Batman.
Oh, sure it is.
But then again, that was who Batman was at the time, so... I feel that, if you want to have a lighter Batman, I would say, just see for what it is. And, there are some highlights of that, but other than that, I don't think it's the strongest animated series of Batman. If you want to do a really campier Batman, I would definitely suggest seeing Brave and the Bold.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Batman Beyond. So... yeah, there are a few flaws with Batman Beyond, but then there are a lot of good highlights to it. But yeah, definitely I would say give it a watch.
What did you think of the music?
I really like the music. It really fit the theme, just like always. And the animation was really nice too. I like the direction that it was going. I just felt that some characters just needed to be more developed than others, especially the villains. But other than that, job well done. It was they were trying to broaden out Batman for not only a new generation, but trying to broaden it in what we were familiar with, which I really give props for.
What would you say was stuff that you didn't like about Beware the Batman?
We're not talking about Beware the Batman. We're talking about Batman Beyond.
No, I said Batman Beyond. What did you not like about Batman Beyond?
Like I said, I really hoped that the first villain that they showed in the first season, the one who was responsible for killing Terry McGinnis' father, he wasn't fleshed out enough. He had the potential to be this really awesome villain, but then afterwards he was defeated so easily that he wasn't given enough development time. He could have easily been like Terry McGinnis' Joker. Tim Deanna actually was when he reviewed Batman Beyond. He also mentioned a few things, and he also gave it a high recommendation. And for me, I do the same. It's just not as good as Batman the Animated Series.
I'll tell you what, though, I love Batman the Animated Series, and I don't think there will be any, and I don't think there will ever be a show that will hold a candle to that show. But I do like very much Batman Beyond. And a lot of people, for some strange, odd reason, just don't like that show. And I don't know why, it's not has garnered enough fan base or anything for it. I think it's a really good show. I think the writing was good.
But when you compare it to the animated series, I guess it falls a little short.
Yeah, you really can't compare it to the animated series. But, I liked it a lot. I really did. And I like the Batsuit, actually. I thought the Batsuit that was really cool.
Yeah, it was very slick and very futuristic.
Oh, yeah. But, I do agree that it really doesn't fall. I like it a lot.
Definitely. Okay, now we come to the one animated Batman series that most people have a lot of hate for, and that will be The Batman. Yes, and this one we have. In this one, it's basically a prequel in which Batman. This is when he was younger. This is when he was first starting out as becoming Batman. Instead of Tim Conway, whom we all know as Batman, it was voiced by Reno Romano, and he did a pretty good job of voicing Batman. And in this one, the Joker was, instead of Mark Hamill, it was voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, whom we all know from Cleveland Jr. and The Cleveland Show, and we know from Captain Gantu and Lilo and Stitch, and now he's the Shredder in the new TMNT.
Brilliant casting on him being the Shredder.
Yeah, he sounds almost exactly like Mark Hamill.
In the Shredder?
No, as the Joker. If you listen to the Joker, it was so cynical and so mean, and he had that really cackling laugh and sense of humor. I thought he did a fantastic job.
what did you not like about the Batman?
The way that they drew the characters, it looks so weird. If you thought that the New Adventures of Batman's character drawings were weird, like, you know, the Joker having like the pointy nose and the pupils and all that stuff, at least he looked like the Joker. This Joker, however, he had dreadlocks and he was barefoot.
I didn't like the fact that he was barefoot. I always said to myself, what would happen if he stepped on a piece of glass? You know, or he stepped in dog shit. I mean, you know, they make him barefoot, and I thought that was a very poor move on character design.
The character design is awful.
Well, they said they wanted him to be more like a primate, but I don't know why they did that for. I don't see the Joker as a monkey.
Definitely not.
I don't see him like that, but they said they wanted to go with that route, so. But I just don't see him like that. I see him, you know, I don't know why they went that route.
Yeah, definitely. As for story-wise, I guess it was smart of them to do a prequel, you know, with Batman Beyond being a futuristic show, and then the Batman going back to his roots. It did make sense, but there was just something about it that wasn't executed properly. I don't know, it just felt a tad bit forgettable to me.
Like what?
Well, besides the weird design to the characters, I don't know, it was just, you try to connect with Batman and what his struggles of trying to get himself started out as being the Batman that we all know, but still, it's like we kind of already knew what was to come. We already saw him in his prime in Batman the Animated Series. We already knew what he was going to be like in the future for Batman Beyond. Seeing him in the past, in The Batman, I'm sure some people would have been interested in finding out where he came from and how he got to be where he was today, but to me, I didn't really care for it.
Really? How so?
Like I said, I felt like it was a good idea, but it just wasn't executed the way it should have been. I think maybe if some of the characters were a tad bit memorable and brought themselves out to be more present, maybe it would have been stronger. But other than that, it was just forgettable for me. How about for you?
Never was a big fan of it. I didn't like the show. Really didn't. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way the characters were drawn. I didn't like the direction it was going. I thought it was a very poor adaptation of Batman. I didn't really like it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I give it a skip.
You give it a skip, huh?
Mm-hmm. And finally, like I said before, Batman the Brave and the Bold was a really good attempt of bringing a lighter incarnation of Batman. And for that, I recommend that you check it out. I know that you, Kevin, you're not really much of a big fan of it. You thought it was a little bit too campy, but still, I think it did really well. In my opinion, it did a lot better than the 70s one. I think that should be it. I think that we can conclude this episode. We've definitely talked a lot about Batman. As for the Batman movies, maybe we'll talk about that another time. So tune in next time as we cover up a really fun topic. Until then, we hope to catch you around soon. Take care.